I feel like Henry already answered one of the most crucial questions we are looking to answer today is whether it is viable to get a small-scale farmer up to commercial level. But within that, there is a whole lot of nuances, and we're going to unpack that today, looking at the real-world challenges and the policy gaps, support structures, and everything we need to realistically get our small-scale farmers up to commercial levels. So I'm going to start off by please asking all of our panelists just to introduce yourselves so that we all know who we are speaking to before we start. Henry, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think I had the chance. I can just say I stay in Bergville. Now everyone wants to go to Cape Town to see a mountain. Come to Bergville and you'll see a mountain.
Yeah, I'm Gerhard Keun. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Oil and Protein Seed Development Trust, Oil Seeds Advisory Committee, and the Protein Research Foundation.
Thanks very much. I'm Jane McPherson. I've been with PGP for a long time, and I look at the mountain that he doesn't want to look at in Cape Town.
Good afternoon, Bonani Nyhodo from the NAMC.
Thank you. So I'm going to kick off a question with everybody, please. And Bonani, I'm going to start with you on that end over there. In your view, is it realistically possible for a small-scale farmer in South Africa to become a commercial farmer?
Yeah, if I were to be very honest, yes. At times, we confuse economies of scale with actual business. There are businesses that do not necessarily have to be big, to be commercial. And perhaps I should be putting a question. How do we classify the wool farmers who are in my village, who produce and supply wool through the same channel with commercial wool farmers? I think what we perhaps need to focus on is what are the areas where we can help them get a big bag for a unit sold.
Thank you. Jane, can we get them to commercial level?
Yes, there are farmers that reach commercial level, but it's not normally the farmer who starts on 1 hectare. Because if you start like in the communal areas, you haven't got enough access to land. But we do have farmers that perhaps only use a portion of their farm and then later use more and more and become commercial like that. But I don't think we must dream that every small-scale farmer is going to become a commercial farmer. But I agree absolutely, is what is commercial? And as long as you're trading and as long as you've got more than you had before, you're better off.
Yeah, it's interesting because in our pre-discussion we also focused on this thing, and Bonani, you touched on it now, about what is the definition of commercial. A lot of us, we think of commercial, we think of huge. And I know last week in BFAP's baseline presentation, Fadi mentioned that in South Africa we get stuck at looking at the 40,000 commercial farmers in South Africa, but it's actually 100,000 if you look at the ability of farmers to trade the surplus that they produce. I mean, that is essentially the definition of commercial. So I suppose we also just have to check ourselves in looking at that, what we define as commercial. Gerhard, what is your answer?
Lindi, if you're an optimist, there should be no reason that smallholder farmers cannot become commercial farmers. Listening to Henry, we need to accept there's limitations. There's a lot of challenges. And as an industry, we definitely need to unlock resources to address those challenges. And then also, there must be ambition and the will for the smallholder farmers to make progress and to become a commercial farmer.
Thank you. Henry?
Yeah, what is a commercial farmer? If you make a profit, you're a commercial farmer. How do you make a profit? Don't push hectares, push yield on your hectares. And that's what we're working on. Not every farmer, small-scale farmer, can become a commercial farmer or a big farmer on hectares. There's not enough land available. So we've got to use what we've got.
Jane, I just want to get back to the comment you made about us not necessarily looking, your 1 hectare farmer isn't necessarily going to jump up to 100 or 1,000 hectare farmer. What is the farmer that is most likely going to make that jump? And does it depend on on him, or does it depend on the tools that we need to give him?
I think the tools and the knowledge and skills are a big factor and an important factor, but where we see the bigger farmers is where they have access to bigger land. In the Free State and Northwest areas of Mpumalanga, it's not the communal areas where they have access to 1 hectare. There they might get to 10 or 20 or 50, but perhaps I can just share a little story. We have a 1 hectare maize project, and the farmers have to contribute 80% of the direct costs. They pay it over to us. And on Monday, we added up. This year, for the coming season, they've deposited 17 million. So those are small farmers whose yields have gone from 1 ton to over 4. In other people's eyes, it's not a win. In our eyes, it's a win because they've got 4 times what they used to have. And it must have value to them, otherwise they wouldn't make their own contribution. So to answer you, it depends on what you're looking at, but it's easier where the farmers have bigger access to land. But then, of course, the Northwest seems to be becoming a desert. So we're struggling there. The farmers have access to land, but we're struggling because of the climate. We really are.
So you've led me now to the next question, and it's about skin in the game. We've spoken about farmers, and I've seen in my experience a lot of developing farmers that I've spoken to where they get into a program, they get funding, they get mentorship, somebody walks the road with them, and then it gets to a point where they need to graduate from the program and walk the road on their own, and then it's like, let's look for the next program, and then they enter the next program, and they seem to be in this perpetual loop of going through the one program to the other, and you end up with a small pool of farmers who are work in the system, and other people perhaps aren't getting access to that funding. So Bonani and Jane, I want you both to just give comments on that. How do we ensure a wider base of farmers get the tools that they need instead of just a small pool who know how to access those programs?
Can I go first? Thank you for that. I think what has happened in the last 2-3 years with the industry organizations is when the colleagues driving transformation move out of their own comfort zones and start interacting with people or communities they have not interacted with to broaden the net. And I don't think Henry remembers that I once visited him. And to me, having seen what the oil and protein seed could do, partnering with an organization like his, was not something that I had seen before. And the model actually even came to me that some aspects of what they do is not necessarily in terms of the guidelines, enterprise development. It may be on the socio-economic. But when you look at what they are getting in terms of the results, then you would see aspects of enterprise development. Sandile took us to the Eastern Cape. There is an area not far from Umtata, along the road that connects to Engcobo, working with an Ndinga in the OR Tambo district. The kind of interventions that are happening there, having grown up in that kind of an environment, it freshens up to see that an industry organization working with local communities and through what they call service providers can give this kind of results. So there are sprouts of great things. And I hope that's what we will do going forward. We won't rest on the comfort of the people we know.
Jane, do you want to give
I
comments?
think we are definitely recycling farmers. A lot of them go from one funder to the next, and then they'll tell you they don't need you anymore because you hear they've gone to somebody else. So that is something that happens. But another challenge that we have is if you have a farmer that doesn't have a track record, then he can't borrow money from a lending institution. Yes, SACTA will allow him, and perhaps PepsiCo, but the banks and so on, they won't allow that farmer in because they don't have a record. But they can't build up a record because they can't get into the starting blocks. So that's also one of the reasons why we keep recycling people, because those people have a production record, and the funders like that. The guy that's got no record, they are afraid to invest in him because who knows what might happen. So that's also difficult because they've got to answer to their shareholders. You know, we think, oh, they're being unreasonable, but if it was my money that I'd invested there, would I be happy to do that?
So it sounds to me like the solution is twofold. On the one hand, we need to better equip the farmers so that they can build up the record keeping and develop their skills in that regard. But we also need to help the farmers who are graduating from that program. Perhaps there's sort of an interim program that's needed before we just launch them out on their own and say, now you're on your own, that's it.
They don't benefit by saying they're commercial. It's like my niece said, being an adult is overrated. It's much easier being a child, isn't it? Because people look after you. And similarly with the developing farmers, it's easier calling yourself a developing farmer because then everybody bends over backwards to help you. As soon as you say, I'm commercial, well, then they're out on their own. And then it's a battle, as the commercial farmers know. It's not so easy out there.
No, that is for sure. I think when you're a teenager, you can't wait to be an adult, and when you're an adult, you wish you were little again.
Yes.
So there's no doubt that smallholder farmers obviously do need assistance to get to a commercial stage, and some funding models are more successful than others. Gerhard, in your experience, what works in terms of getting the farmers to a point where they are true graduates and they can stand on their own 2 feet, and what doesn't work?
There certainly are different funding models. And from the All Seeds Trust and the All Seeds Advisory Committee, we're operating in the grant funding environment. I think the biggest fact is that you need to manage these funding models. And the funding models, the different funding models need to support each other. And that depends on the farmer, how big or small, the support that the farmer needs. And there's examples out there of these different funding models supporting each other to make a contribution to the growth and progress these small-scale farmers make. Just as an example, the grant funding provided by the All Seeds Trust and the All Seeds Advisory Committee, we got the policy that it can be used for training, mentorship, technology transfer. But when it's a small-scale farmer in terms of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 hectare farmers, Henry, who is executing that project, is allowed to also utilize that funding for the buying of the production inputs. Further, we also make use of PGP and FarmSol and others, but they allow to fund only or fund bigger farmers, but utilize that funding to unlock other funding and funding resources from other role players in the industry. So they can either use it for insurance or for mentorship or for soil correction, and for the input funding or the production finance, they can use other sources. So we need to look at it from a holistic point of view. The different models need to support each other, and that depends on the service provider, it depends on the farmers they support, and then we will make a success of financing the farmers.
It sounds to me like it's a bit of it's a mammoth task to actually understand all the development programs that there are and understand so that the left hand can understand what the right hand is doing. And if we're all going to work together, a person actually needs to sort of sit around a table with all the development fund programs and see, but who's doing what and how do you overlap? Is that something that's feasible?
That is definitely so. And Sandile, in his presentation, referred to the platform developed by BFAP. We also engage with BFAP using the platform, and the service providers we contract to do projects for us in terms of transformation are also using that platform to report to the Oil Seed Trust and the Oil Seeds Advisory Committee. So the monitoring and the evaluation is important. You need to measure yourself, and that's the only way that with a platform like that we will prevent the double counting as well as the wrong allocation of funding.
Okay. So mechanization is obviously a big part of helping small-scale farmers get to a commercial level, and we often see government as comes forward, provides funding. Mechanization companies also provide tractors, but then anybody who's driven through the countryside will notice that there are often brand new tractors standing on plots of land that don't look like they've been used. Henry, I just want to address that issue with you. How should we be managing mechanization so that we give smallholders a real chance for success, so that the right machinery gets to the right people and that it doesn't just lay idle on the plots?
Yeah, from Eden's side, I work with land care projects also in the department, and they help us with a lot of threshing machines and equipment. But what we say is, find what is in your area and fix it first, before you buy new. There's too many new stuff, tractors, whatever, not been used. And if we look at, not even in the department, but we look at tribal authorities, there's a lot of tractors and stuff standing around, not been used, which can be fixed. Example, threshing machines. We find one of my champions, Jabu, went out. He's a soil scientist for the department in the Loskop area, and he went out and go and look what is available. What threshers can we get? I've shown him a model. I've seen one standing in Dundee at the Agriculture Research Council, brand new, but it's not been used in 5-10 years. And he went out and he collected 3 machines, one in Dundee, one in Ulundi, and one in close to Cozy Bay. Threshers for soybean and mealies. And out of that 3, we fixed 2 to be used. Unfortunately, they bring it to me. My background is technical, so yeah, I ended up fixing it, but we're still using it today. So what we're saying, look what is in your area. Don't just go and buy new. There's a lot of planters which can be fixed, tractors and stuff. Go and look in the area. We're saying to the department, go and take stock what you've got in your area. And to give you an example, I've worked in, if you look at Komati Poort and you look at the Mozambique border, and there was at one place where we worked, I had a day helping, training women how to use soya in their own kitchen, and I walked around lunchtime to look what is lying there, and it's a big agriculture hub. And I'm not lying to you, there was 103 tractors on that premises. Some of them being used, but most of them not been used from stuff a few years. Now, if you take that and you fix it first, and make sure that somebody, what I've said to Jabu, if you bring this threshers, you bring it out of the system of those areas, and we book it into agriculture office in Ukahlamba. Otherwise, you fix it and they come and grab it, say, bring it back our machine. So the paperwork must be right. You get the machine, you fix it, and you use it in an area. And then also, last thing, what I want to say to the farmers, if you get equipment, the thing with small farmers or farmers, they're getting equipment from government, think it's government. I can mess it up. I can use it. I don't care about it. It's not government's, it's yours. You using it. You getting a crop, you get paid for your crop. So what I always also say to the farmer, look after the equipment, even if it's government.
Henry, just you said in our prep discussion, you said you mentioned some kind of a system where the farmer actually pays if there is damage to the equipment. Did I understand correctly? And that actually made a big difference in the maintenance of the equipment.
Yeah, we had a few of these threshers. We still got them from SACTA. Now you give it out to the farmer, and you don't know how you're going to get it back. And what we decided is we're going to use a small percentage of the crop the farmer gets in to pay for the usage. So what we do is, or if there's maintenance needed, so we take a photo of the thresher, the farmer signs for it, we WhatsApp the photo to him. We're using WhatsApps in the farming it's wonderful. Everyone's got a cell phone, so we WhatsApp the photos to them and say, okay, if my mentor hands it over to the next farmer, you take a photo. If there's something wrong, you tell us. You send us a WhatsApp. If you bring your crop in, I repair the machine. You bring your crop in, I fix that machine if it was neglected, if it was not a mechanical problem, which is wear and tear. And that system, they look after the equipment because it's going to cost them money if they don't look after it.
Thank you. Important to note for what works and what doesn't work. Bonani, I just want to get to the issue of market. Sorry, we're jumping a bit round on topics now, but we have limited time. Often we've seen cases also where farmers get assistance to plant a certain crop, but there's no market for the crop in the area, or the silo where they need to deliver is 200 kilometers away and they don't have transport, and even if they did, all their profits would go to paying for the transport. So how do we prevent this system where, again, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing?
Thank you very much. I thought I was going to have a word on this machinery business.
No, please do.
Let me do. There is this expectation from us, when I say us, those who are not small farms or farmers, that small farmers should retrofit on the machinery that's there. And we know the machinery that is in the market in SA is geared for big farmers. And unlike in India, where you would see a small little thing that looks like a tractor that someone can handle moving in the field, we do not have that kind of thinking in terms of machinery. So the supply of machinery has not adjusted to service the small and subsistence farmers. I think colleagues would remember there is a person at Nampu who sells bed savers, who sells these knapsacks and others. A couple of years, that stand used to be very lousy. But in the last 2-3 years, go to that stand and you look at the number of people who are queuing to purchase those small little things. So we have not yet addressed the problem of small village farmers in respect of machinery. Let me come to the problem that you have put to me in respect of the market. So I spend a bit of time when I can in the Eastern Cape. A couple of years back, a bag of maize, even during this period, would still be high. But if you go to the Eastern Cape now, and you try to sell a bag of maize, 40 kg, for a price above 180, you are not going to sell that. Why? The interventions I'm talking about of the industry to trigger production are somehow working. And perhaps what we need to be thinking, and that's why the concept of the value chain needs to come to us, is that these areas are areas that are buying feed. Where is that feed coming from? Perhaps it's coming from elsewhere, which gives an indication that to stimulate the activity in the movement of what is produced, perhaps we need to put a bit of, maybe first 2 lines of processing and a bit of storage, so that those who can wait until the surplus is moved for what they produce, then can put it in the storage. So the problem of the market at times where I stand, if you have people adjusting their production practices, then the market issue can be addressed with further interventions in the value chain.
So it's also about giving them the infrastructure and the storage to store their produce. So I want to now get onto the topic of budgeting and financial planning, Jane. We've spoken a bit about teaching the farmer to build records and to build those financial records. And without those financial records, without production records, it's very, very difficult for them to get financing. So that's one part of the question. And then the other part of the question is just, is there a lack of financial training? Are we, when we're putting farmers into these development programs, actually teaching them? But if you're going to get a grant from government and suddenly there's R500,000 that lands in your bank account, do you actually know how to manage that? Are we looking at that, or is that fallen a bit by the wayside?
No, I think the financial training is a big factor, but the other thing that we're trying to address is the whole question of having financial statements and management statements. The commercial farmers have got accountants, auditors, they've got a program, Sage or Xero, on their computer, and they do a lot of it themselves. We find with our black farmers, they take their books to a bookkeeper who maybe does their VAT, and they get financial statements at the end of the year that have lumped all the income together, all the expenses together, and they can't get any management information out of that. So we actually, from PGP side, are trying to see if we could start a bureau which does bookkeeping for these farmers. So you can actually get a holistic picture, because most of us now know we lent him money to plant 100 hectares of maize, and we know it was so much and he got so much back. But we don't know anything more about him. He might have cattle, he might have poultry, he might have all sorts. We don't know that. So if we could have a proper financial management system, which obviously is going to cost money and farmers need to pay, then we could actually get a holistic picture of the farmer and help him to move to the next level. But while we splinter everything, we're not going anywhere. So it's training, but it's also access to these programs. People don't do it on the back of a cigarette box like my folks used to do anymore. The margins are too small for the cigarette box.
Is that kind of training provided in the...
Yes, I mean, we do some, but I know the banks also do some. But even if you're a Wigan Wonder and somebody gives you a one-day course, you actually don't learn enough. It's something that needs continual following up. You can't arrive on somebody's doorstep and teach them how to manage their finances in 2 lessons. It takes time, and we need to spend more time on it. And it costs money. Training costs money. All these things cost money. Development doesn't make money, it costs money. Yeah. And that's what's difficult, is finding the money to do it.
Yes. Are there further comments that everybody wants to add before I open the floor for questions? Are there any questions? Going once? Okay, thank you. I know we've jumped around a lot of the factors here, but there's a lot that we need to consider in terms of getting small-scale farmers to commercial. So for me, the takeaway is that, yes, it is absolutely possible, but we do need to start looking at getting a holistic view of the programs. I think we need to start getting everybody around a table so that we start discussing what works, what doesn't work, what are the programs that are out there, and perhaps then also looking at a kind of registry of farmers that have already taken part in development programs, and most certainly a registry of the equipment that has been given to farmers, those that are currently on the land, those are functioning, those are not functioning, so that at least we can just start with it, because it's quite a heavy investment in equipment, and that's certainly a big opportunity that we can capitalize on, because the money has already been spent if we can just get that into production.
Lindi, could I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I think part of our problem is our egos. Each of us wants to be seen to be doing well and being a good development agency, instead of us all saying it is an enormous job, and if we helped each other and advised each other and learned from each other, we would go better. But we want to be that Quran sitting on that anthill on our own, and that's, I think, one of the things that's holding us back. Let's put our egos down.
Absolutely. I think if that is the one central message I've been hearing across the conferences, yes, that I've been hearing across the conferences this whole year is just about collaboration, and most importantly, cross-industry collaboration, because a lot of us, we sit in silos depending on the commodity that we are in, and if biosecurity has taught us anything, is that we really do need to start collaborating. So thank you very much for everybody's input. I hope that was food for thought, and that we will, that what we heard here today will also drive our smallholder farmer development programs forward, so that not just so that they can get to commercial farmers, but that, Henry, I love what you said in your presentation, that we can feed families and that we can feed a nation. Thank you.